Kyle,
David,
how's it going, buddy?
it's going, man. How are you?
I'm living the dream. Doesn't get too much better than this, eh? After the Packers produced the first shutout in the entire NFL season, granted against a team that was down literally every single player, we pretty much were playing them at preseason mode. But I will take it, and it was still a W in the win column.
It is a W in the win column. It is not our proudest W of the season, but it is definitely a win. Um, yeah, I think the preseason mode comparison is good. The Saints were at less than operational for this game. We all knew that coming in, but we also know that this league is a tough league to win in, and on any given week you can lose. So I
Yeah,
think they're
honestly, if you end up taking a girl to prom who's not the prettiest, but you still end up getting lucky, still got lucky on prom night.
that's true. Very true. So let's talk very briefly about the Saints game here. Number one, props are in order. We talked before the show about your props, and I told you I'd give them. I'm a humble guy, Dave. All right,
Hey,
I will I
all I
will
need.
I will give you your props where they are due. I will give you your credit. I will celebrate you. You had the winner chicken dinner on the score predictions this week. I think that you were 38-10 or something similar to that.
Yeah.
I was not. I was 27-20. The Packers always scare me at the end of games. I think that they're going to always allow a team back in it that shouldn't be in it. So until the defense is a little bit better, I think I'm going to be a little bit more sketched on the score predictions. But you are the winner of this week, and congratulations is in order, my friend. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir. It's not easy. It's not easy, but I find a way to do it in and out every week.
Well, I wouldn't say every week, but
Not every
you
week.
are
Against you.
you're more consistent now towards the end of the season. I'll give you that.
Hey, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
What we should do for next year is we should have some kind of running tally of score predictions, and the winner, either gets a prize or the loser has to do something.
Yeah.
As you know,
Honestly, if we do anything professional on this podcast,
yeah.
season 2, we'll bump it up a little bit quality wise.
Also, Mr. T is still berating me about getting a signed picture of you. So
Oh,
you
good
better.
for Mr. T. It's in the mail. It's honestly, I didn't pay shipping, so it's long snail mail at this point.
Yeah, it's the holiday season as well, so I think that you have to be patient.
Yeah, honestly, Mr. T, I'm sorry. It's probably on a boat somewhere from China. I think that the shipping industry needs to be changed because the fact that it didn't go straight to you and it went out to China first and then it has to cross, on a ferry, and it's a lot of logistics. But this isn't a logistic podcast now, is it, Kyle?
Well, no, it is not. And also, it's interesting to think about the Chinese maybe even making copies of that weren't authorized to keep for themselves.
Yeah,
And
I am very popular in China.
I would mass distribute that all over the place if I was the Chinese. I don't blame them at all.
If for no other reason, my sheer size, I am an anomaly to them.
That's true.
There's this Japanese store I go to down in Arlington Heights, and I am literally 2 feet taller than every other human being in that whole store. It is something. Like people have to physically go like this and look up to see me. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it's a being short, Dave, being the same size since like freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
I've always admired people that are taller, but I don't know that I would like it. There's size advantages, of course. You should have been in the NFL by now. How you're not is just a complete disgrace to your size and weight.
Yep.
But
No,
but
I'm a failure. Yeah, I didn't realize I was doing this podcast with my dad.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I just a waste of God given size and ability. But I think that it's more of a slight to me that you are not doing things in the NFL or making millions of dollars right now, and you're sitting here on a podcast with me.
Hey, you know what? If anything, we are reaching out to people, really making a difference, like to Mr. T and that one under a random lady who comments on all of our YouTube videos. Maybe she knows you. I don't know, but
Yeah. So usually people listen to the podcast pretty heavy in the beginning and not so much at the end. So I'm going to take a moment to shout us out real quick. If you are watching the YouTube videos of this podcast, you can also find us on Instagram. Um, at the Lambeau Lounge. That is our tag on Instagram. You can also find us on Spotify, so feel free to give us a listen there. The shorts have been really popular, Dave, as of recently, specifically ones about your size, and then others here and there that kind of have picked up popularity in regards to the Bears being a dumpster fire and all kinds of stuff. So,
Yeah, we just had some
um,
fun popping out those shorts. I see.
yeah, so just wanted to shout that out quick. Let's bounce back to Packers Saints. Uh, like looking at the stat column for the Packers, like it wouldn't really seem like the score, like the stat line supports what the score was. I think Jordan Love completed 16 of 28 passing. Josh Jacobs 13 carries for like 68 yards. Not necessarily like the pop game on the stat sheet, but enough to obviously get the win against a very damaged Saints team. And the Packers overall 404 total yards. It's not a bad day at all at the office. Three different running backs scored touchdowns, and at the end of the day, Dave, the time of possession for the Packers in this game was 37 minutes. We're gonna
Mm.
talk about time. We talk about time of possession a lot on here, and obviously, like if you're an avid sports fan or football fan, you understand the meaning of that and how that represents who controlled the game better when it comes down to it. But I think that's probably a good game plan for this situation. Is hey, you got a workhorse in Josh Jacobs, let him do his thing. Trust your guys to get the job done. Just ball control and end every drive with a touchdown. In the best case scenario. And so, um, it ends up being that the Packers score on their first three possessions of this game, which hasn't happened for a number of years. And it's good to see them finishing drives. I remember in the Aaron Rodgers era, especially when he was a little bit younger, them going down the field, and it was almost inevitable that we were going to score a touchdown at the end of a drive. It wasn't really a question, and we've kind of lost that throughout the years through younger quarterbacks, through Aaron Rodgers' aging process, through talent in and out of Green Bay. We've kind of seen that dwindling, and it's nice to know that the Packers do have the ability to go down the field and put points on the board, and it's not just going to be a field goal. So that was nice to see in the Saints game. A fun stat to see afterwards. And then we know that again, this Saints team is all banged up. Injuries can greatly impact a team's season. Unfortunately for the Saints, that may or may not be the case. Obviously, we know that they're not playing at their best right now due to their whole offense being hurt. But ultimately, the Packers control the ball for 15 more minutes than the New Orleans Saints, and we come out with a victory. What are your takeaways from the game?
I kind of feel like honestly, we could have even held the ball a lot more. At time possession, I feel like that second half kind of got us a little bit because we did have the fast start, but we kind of had like that cool off period in the middle, and then faded out towards the end. And even our backups ended up scoring on them with Malik Willis and Emmanuel Wilson at the end. But that game, it was weird because we it was a blowout. Don't get that confused. But it didn't really feel like a blowout. Like it feels like most blowouts are just kind of like that fun and exciting, wow, we're really killing it. Like, wow, this team could win the Super Bowl tomorrow. Like, I never really felt that with the Packers. I felt like it was, if there was a such thing as a more boring blowout, this was kind of that game. Let me ask you a question, Kyle. Have you ever heard of the song "The Chattahoochee"? Down by the river on the Friday night at the
Yeah,
Chattahoochee.
I've heard the
In,
song, Dave.
in the words of Alan Jackson said he fogged up the windows in his old Chevy. He was willing, but she wasn't ready. So he settled for a burger and an ice cream cone, took her home early, but he didn't go home. Now, for one, that's pure art, if you ask me. But
That
beside the
is.
point, that game was kind of that, it kind of was that feel to me. We fogged up the windows. We got 21-point lead there. We were getting hot and heavy. And then we just didn't get there all the way. We didn't get exactly what we wanted. We still got a burger, still got a snow cone. I'm happy. It's not a bad night. but it wasn't what you desired. It wasn't that game that we're going to remember 10, 15 years from now that it could have been.
Yeah,
I think back to, do you remember that year the Texans were like 5-0 and we just came out and we blew them out. Like we destroyed them that game. I forget what year it was, but it was like that was a moment that like we went in and we just destroyed them. It was like 50-20 by the time it was all said and done, and they got most of their points in garbage time. Like this could have been that type of a game. We had all the potential to blow the Saints out. We had all the firepower, but it just feels like we stalled out on a few drives in the middle. So not a bad game, but it didn't leave me with like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to keep on seeing the Packers play. We're gonna win it all. This is the trademark game, you know?
yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I'd agree with you. I think that there was a lot of talk pregame and during the game of the, I guess, the narrative of Matt LaFleur saying to the players and everything, "Hey, I need full 4 quarters of football. I need a representation of what this is going to look like come playoff time. You know, are we for real, and can you deliver 4 full quarters here?" And while I'm not sure that the Packers fully delivered on that, I think that the 34-0 victory is convincing that they're headed in the right direction. It's just, um, ultimately, like at the end of the day, is it or is it 4 full quarters of football? I don't know.
They're
I
like,
think
best
that,
I can do is 2.5.
yeah, I think that's just subjective. But I like what I saw. And like, again, like we're talking about tests, and we can get there later, but like true tests are going to be against other teams that are in the same position or have something to lose or want the victory as much as we want the victory. And I'm not saying that the Saints don't want to win football games against good teams, or disappoint the Packers into going into the playoffs, which we clinched with this victory. But I'm also saying that it doesn't mean as much to the New Orleans Saints as it's going to mean for the Vikings to beat us twice in a year, when they're trying to claim the top of the division, and they're still fighting and clawing for to prove that they're the best in the NFC North still. So
Hmm.
it doesn't mean as much to them as it means to the Green Bay Packers. So um, let me transition here and just ask you: do you think that this was the Saints game just a fluke? Is it really that this game, just kind of panned out the way that it did solely because of injuries? Not that the Packers played well, but the Saints played so poorly that it made it very easy for the Packers to look good? Or do you think that it's a little bit of both, or where do you fall into that argument?
I feel like the Packers, it's weird. They kind of played to their competition in a way. So I feel like this game kind of showed that where they they played not to their full potential. They still played good, still had a good game, but then you see them against like an elite Lions team where it seems like they try harder, they play harder. You're able to score and you're able to, go up against these Titans and still do decent. Like every game that the Packers have lost this year to every, good team, they've been close in. And this was just kind of that game where I felt like they knew that they had them beat, and then they kind of let the foot off the gas. If, say, the Saints would have had their starters, maybe it would have been more competition. Maybe it would have been more of a game. Say if you're up by 21, you kind of know what's up. Like, but now say that they score a couple of those drives with Derek Carr. Not saying they would. Our defense is pretty good, especially with Edger and Cooper out there. But say it's 21-14 instead of 21 nothing, maybe they have to keep on playing. Maybe they have to bump up their game just a little bit. Uh but yeah, I don't think that we got our full 100%. This is who we are as a Green Bay Packer team. It's us versus the world. Come and get it. Like we didn't have that moment.
So is it your belief that the game is just kind of a fluke then? Would you say, like for all the people that'd be like, oh, it's the Saints, it doesn't matter. They're practicing in freezers to get ready. They they obviously didn't prepare in the way that they needed to prepare. They don't have the pieces to win the game anyway. Like do you buy into that argument, or are you just kind of like meh?
Side note: why are you in a freezer? there's there's so many points. It takes I think it's like 2 weeks to get accumulated to the temperature of any environment that you're in. So sitting in a freezer for 6 hours does nothing for you. Go practice. You're playing the Green Bay Packers. Get out of the fridge, start practicing. You're sitting there worried next to freaking cold cuts instead of worrying about the Green Bay Packers coming to town. This man, Spencer Rattler, had a whole ice cream bucket in his lap while he's sitting watching film. You're not going to beat the Green Bay Packers. Like, quit doing gimmick things against the Green Bay Packers. That's like the Dolphins earlier this year, where he was like, I'm going to throw ice cubes at them. Where in Green Bay is ice just thrown at you? This doesn't exist. It's cold. It's Green Bay. It's not the warmest environment. It's cold, but that's it. We're not hanging out in freezers. We're not getting ice thrown at it. We're human beings. We're from the Midwest. What is wrong with all of these places from warm climates? That's like us being like, "Oh, I'm going down to Louisiana to play. I need to sit with beignets and sit in an oven or a sauna. Oh, I'm going to Florida. I better wrestle an alligator." No, you're going to a different environment. Stop it. You guys are freaks. We're not that special. It's Green Bay, Wisconsin. Land land of title town. But yeah, no,
Honestly, it's almost like a Comedy Central skit, if I'm being quite honest with you. Like the fact that that somebody thought to themselves, "Hey, let's do walkthroughs in a freezer," and somebody was like, "Oh, absolutely, we should do that. That'll definitely prepare our guys better to play the Green Bay Packers." While we're literally
this
missing
guy
every important
remote
offensive piece that we have, is just absolutely it's asinine. It is really crazy that they thought that that was going to work. Like that'll definitely drive it home, boys. We'll get the W if we just do this in the fridge.
sir, Derek Carr's out, Alvin Kamara's out, all of your wide receivers are out, as well as players on defense. He's like, bring me the freezer. Bust out the walk-in. Like, what? Throw
It's just
them in the freezer. Did I stutter? Give me
that
as
is
much
that is
ice as you can.
And you know what the crazy thing is like even like so I hadn't heard anything about that prior to the game starting, and then I saw a meme of Rattler in a freezer after the game, and I was like, "What is this?" Like I thought it was just a comparison to like the temperatures in Green Bay or something like that. I didn't actually realize until the story came out that they had done walkthroughs in the freezer. So I was like, this is crazy that this is actually true, and that I had seen memes about it but didn't understand it. Somebody had to have thought that we cannot release this until afterwards because of how it's perceived. Like, there's no way that we can let this hit the media, and then some poor Saints player that's that's only on the active roster from the practice squad right now was like, "No, this is getting leaked. We can't have this. I'm not going to be here next year. It doesn't matter. This has got to get leaked to
Just
someone."
you get a guy from the media just walking through. He's like, "Hey, where is everybody right now? Shouldn't they be in, the locker room studying? Shouldn't they be at team meetings?" And they're like, "Oh, they're at team meetings right now. Where at?
You have you
Have you ever
have you
been?"
seen that? Have you seen that frozen tundra guy that always goes to the Green Bay games? He's always in like the full icicle cheese head and stuff like
Yeah,
that. I'm sure you've seen him.
yeah, all
Yeah,
decked out.
that's how I'm picturing Spencer Rattler like leaving this walkthrough, and like there being a reporter like right outside the opening to the freezer, like Spencer, please.
It's just Doctor Evil from Austin Powers, where he's frozen and he's just sitting there like,
Hmm.
"I'm freaking
Uh,
freezing."
Tell us about the Arctic temperature, Spencer.
It's stop it. Just stop doing goofy stuff against the Green Bay Packers. I don't go to San Francisco and get mugged to prepare for a game. I don't go to New York and practice show tunes to get like I don't raise my cholesterol to go to Chicago. Like it's uh yeah.
No,
People are
that's
weird,
a
man.
that's a fair point. I wouldn't want to go get mugged for a pregame ritual or to make my team play better. That definitely
Please,
wouldn't do me a lot of
please,
good.
sir. Take take these terrible pills for you. Take these opioids and stab me and rob me real quick. I need to be ready for San Fran.
Oh man, we can stay on this topic forever. Uh,
Yeah.
let's let's move on. I hate to be the the person that ruins the fun here, but
It's
let's refocus.
for the
So
best, yeah.
we obviously know that the Chicago Bears are experiencing quite the catastrophe in their organization right now, which is that you draft a first round pick quarterback and you trust him to be the face of the franchise. You have all these preseason, like notions that you're going to be the best team in the NFC, are very competitive in his first year. That You have the best receiving core in the NFL, which I've already touched on, so I won't touch on that again. But you know, which obviously that's debatable at this point in the season, and not compared to the Packers necessarily, just compared to the rest of the teams in the NFL. I would argue that that's not the case, but obviously there's a quarterback situation, but there's also a coaching situation going on in Chicago, and we know we've talked about it a lot in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur and how great of a job he does play calling and coaching. But we know that a quarterback is also with talent, I guess, is what I'm getting at here. With talent comes the system that the quarterback is in. And we know that a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL are just system quarterbacks to some extent, right? Like Sam Darnold, not a lot of success other places until he comes to Minnesota, finds a system that works very well, finds some talent on the offensive side of the ball that can support him, and voila, you have a quarterback who's playing, at a rate that's going to get you 2 losses in a season right now. Like that's a good season to be having as a guy who really wasn't that relevant in the NFL until now. So we know that the system does matter when it comes to quarterback play in the NFL. And some guys are able to kind of surpass that and be great, even though their team isn't that great. I think Matthew Stafford is the first name that comes to mind when I think of guys that weren't always in the best offensive systems, but that were still playing at a very high level. Matthew Stafford was always a dog, even when he, came over to the Lions from what
Ironically, he was a dog coming out of college as well.
from Georgia, right? So
Georgia,
uh, Georgia. So
Georgia.
um, so like I think of quarterbacks along the way that are just kind of system quarterbacks and that it works very well and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that we've also, to take it one step further before we get to my main point here, like we've seen Malik Willis also succeed in this Green Bay system very quickly where there is a expectation of what is I'm just going to say expected, but that seems like I'm doubling down on words now. But there's definitely a certain style of play in Green Bay that is expected from the coaching perspective and what Matt LaFleur demands out of these guys. And we've seen Malik Willis be very successful in a short period of time and even win a couple of big games when Jordan Love has been hurt. So again, I'm making the same point, but I'm kind of driving it home. But the Bears are in this loop where they have a lot of different decisions within the organization to make at this point. And this isn't the Bears podcast. We're not here to dissect the Bears organization, tell them all the moves to make or anything like that. But I look at Chicago in a game like yesterday where they play Seattle at home, which should have been a good game through and through, probably a pretty decent scoring game if I would have predicted it, prior to game time. But the game ends up 6-3. The Bears defense plays fairly well. They only allow 6 points, right? Like any time that you can allow only 6 points on defense, like we should
It's
win
a
that game.
pretty good day, yeah.
But you get 3 points on the offensive side of the ball, and I think there's a lot of frustration within that organization right now, and the system needs to change. And that's no secret. They're looking for a coach come next year, right? They have an interim head coach right now who's just doing the best that he can to get through the rest of the year, and that's understandable. Fallen way below expectations. They're talking about sell the team, do all this other stuff. But I guess there's a lot of question marks, or there was at least at one point in Green Bay, about is Jordan Love just a product of a good system? Is he a system quarterback in Green Bay? And the talent that he has, is that just part of Matt LaFleur's system and that any quarterback could be successful in it should they come to Green Bay? Or do you believe that, you know, that entering the playoff run when it comes down to Jordan being, relying on some kind of talent and maybe playing teams that we've already seen twice in a year, that it might present some problems if we only rely on that talent? Is Jordan Love just a system quarterback to you?
I would. So, speaking to your point, let's start that as a whole. I feel like
I
it's
know
kind of
I
like,
know it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a big
yeah,
run on
no,
sentence.
Yeah, there's a little bit there, but hey, that's a good question. I think that ultimately it kind of leads to it's like with human beings, nature versus nurture. Is it the actual characteristics of who this person is that's making them, or is it their surroundings that's really helping them out at this point? And I feel like with Green Bay, for one, not even just Green Bay. Anybody in the NFL is more talented than anyone else in the rest of the world at playing football. The worst players, the people who are in the practice squads, are much more athletic than me. They are faster than me. They are football IQ. They are smarter than me. They all are playing at a very, very high level for a reason, and I feel like that's the way of quarterbacks. Any anybody who's playing quarterback in the NFL, if you were to be in a flag football league, they'd be the MVP. They'd be lighting you up, and you'd have your jaw on the ground, just like, oh my gosh, how is this guy doing that? How is he zipping the ball? That's just who he is. That's who anybody is that has made it to that level. And that's how high the competition is in the NFL. And then that's where you have guys who, when your competition is that high, you're either going to match it, raise above it, or you're going to fall below subpar. And I feel like there's just weird cultures in fan bases where you just don't want to wait. Everything's it's a now. It's like Amazon Prime. You want wins in 2 days. You don't want to wait anymore. And that's just where you have these fan bases that have gone so toxic because they haven't won in so long. You have a New York, you have a Chicago, you have places that really haven't gotten to taste any victory, so they go bitter, and it becomes, oh, this is the same old, sell the team, do this, do that. And I don't think it's fair to the quarterback. I think Caleb Williams is an incredibly talented quarterback. I feel like over the years they haven't really invested in the offensive line the way that they should have. Because you look at Green Bay, Green Bay picks probably at least two offensive linemen every year in the draft. Now, do all of them work out? No. But then you get your Zach Toms in the fourth rounds. You get your Rasheed Walkers in the seventh round. You get your Sean Ryan in the third round. You get guys that over time are here, there, a pick here, pick there. They develop over time. They get to sit. You look at this year. We have Josh Myers as our center. Say next year he doesn't return because this is his final year of the contract. We have Jacob Monk sitting in the wings. He's had his year to learn and grow and have the NFL weight training and to really learn a playbook. Got him in the fifth round of the Duke. So you have guys that have been waiting in the wing. Chicago doesn't do that. Chicago sees the offensive lineman. They pick them, maybe in the first round, maybe in the second round, and then they just throw them in, throw them straight into the fire. And not everybody responds to that great. And that's where you're looking at their line where, yeah, they got a lot of high draft picks, but you got guys that never really got to develop and grow their bodies and their IQs to the level that they need to perform as a team. And offensive lines, especially me, I'm a big ugly. I love talking about offensive line. You are as strong of an offensive line as your weakest link. And now every single year, you're throwing a rookie who's, yeah, he's a high draft pick. Yeah, he's a second rounder. Yeah, he's a first rounder. Yeah, he's a third rounder. Top 100 draft pick. He's still a rookie coming in. He's versing men that are probably 10 years older than him who have been rushing quarterback since they were little, like a higher quality of skill. And now you're giving up sacks on this end. Now we have to spread the system. Now we have to have chips. Now we have to get you double teams going. And then that opens up a spot for somewhere else to come in and rush. And you got a guy like Brian Flores from the Vikings where he sees a weak link. Oh my gosh, he's going to exploit that. And that's just where Caleb Williams has been because at all times he's always been under duress. You can have amazing wide receivers. You're not getting the help right now because we haven't developed that system. Green Bay has developed that system. That's where, it's the nurture. That's where, yes, this culture is good for you. This is going to help you grow as a quarterback because it's not just you, it's 11 men on that field. You have to make sure that everybody's doing their part. Um, Say for Jordan Love, I feel Jordan Love has grown because of his system. But that being said, he still can throw anywhere on the field. He's got an incredibly accurate arm. He's got a cannon. I think Jordan Love could succeed in many other programs just based off his arm talent alone. But you also, as any quarterback, you have to give him time. Say if you're like Peyton Manning, play, throw what was it, the longest yard. with Adam Sandler, where his team gave up on him and they were just letting the guards come in and tackle him every single play. And he's just like, oh, guys, stop it, stop it. And then he just keeps on getting sacked. Peyton Manning could be out there. If you're getting 1 second to throw the ball and you're getting freaking squashed immediately, yeah, you're not going to be good. You're going to force throws. You're going to make inaccurate reads. You're going to be startled because you know in the back of your mind, there's probably a guy behind me who's already beat my tackle. If I throw this back, my arm's about to get whacked. Like, and that's the psychology that's in the NFL where that sticks in your mind. Jordan has been able to grow and to know I have a system. I know my checkdowns. I know my timing with my wide receivers because he's played with them for the last few years. I feel like love is exactly what you want the NFL quarterback to be. Lamar Jackson, same thing. He got to sit, he got to grow, he got to develop. And you're going to go through bumps, you're going to go through, different hardships, but you're still going to grow. And if you just right away oh, this guy sucks, yeah, he's blah blah blah, like fans are doing with Caleb Williams right now, then if what you're going to do, you're going to move on. You're going to get rid of Caleb Williams, who could potentially be an amazing quarterback because he has all the tools, but the fan base has just been so toxic at this point. They just turned everything, unless if we're getting those W's now, gotta Jameis Winston, gotta eat those yummy dubs, num num num. They're so freaking hungry for a W that they're just turning grumpy and mean. And I hate that a quarterback like a Caleb Williams or like a Sam Darnold or anybody else, a Baker Mayfield had to go through that. And I'm so happy that Jordan Love got drafted to the right environment. He was allowed to develop, and he's really using that cannon arm to be an elite quarterback, be a top 10 quarterback in this league because of who he is, because he was in the right system, and because he was given the right development.
So you're saying that like there's not a definitive answer, that there's like that there's truth in the fact that the system supporting the quarterback is important, but ultimately that that Jordan has the talent, and that he could potentially be successful no matter what organization he was a part of.
Yeah, no, he definitely could have been, but I think that his best odds were being in a system like Green Bay. It's like, say if he would have went to a Sean McVay, that would have been his best odds. But if you say he went to say he went to a New York Jets where they were starting him right away, or a Chicago Bears where they were starting him right away, he wouldn't have succeeded in those systems just because it would have just been toxic from the get go.
Yeah, to your point, like you know, I think that I always think back to like Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay when I think about like what they could have done for Caleb Williams, right? And like they brought in rookies like Tristan Wirfs and they did all like this, configuring of the offensive line, but they needed to know that Tom Brady was going to be protected when he dropped back to pass, because especially because of his age at the time, he's too
Yeah,
too old to be as mobile as he once was, and they knew that to be competitive and to compete for a Super Bowl, which is what they ended up doing and winning, of course. Why not? It's Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. But, you know, they knew that they needed to protect the guy. And at the very least, that's what they could do for Caleb Williams. But it just seems like they've been ineffective at doing that all year long. And the kid, man, the stat that really blows my mind is that he threw an interception yesterday at the end of the game, which is just a garbage time. Like he's just trying to do whatever he can to win the game and give his team a
yeah,
shot. Like totally admire that. But it's like 450 pass attempts. That's his first interception in that many pass attempts, I think, or whatever it was. And it's mind blowing to me that he has that stat with the offensive line that he has. It's just showing that like he's still smart with the ball. He's not having great games or not playing good offensive football, but he's not giving the ball away. He's not like turning the ball over every other drive, just throwing balls up to for grabs. So he has the arm talent, and like again, like this isn't the Bears podcast, and
no,
I'm not trying to sympathize with them, but I also at the same time I'm feeling like you know this could be something in the future where uh, I think they need to add some supporting pieces to this, and they need to figure out who their quarterback really is and what system he's going to be successful in. Because if they don't do that, they're going to have a lot of years of misery with another guy who was supposed to be the one for them, but ends up not being that thing.
And that's for any team. That's not just Chicago. A good analogy that I can think of is, so if you're a farmer and you're trying to grow anything, let's say you're growing a tomato plant. If you're putting this tomato plant in the ground, it's got to be good soil. And you can't all of a sudden be all like, "Oh, wait, that soil's terrible. I got to fertilize it," and then you start shitting and throwing it at it. Like, you're not. All that's going to happen is you still got bad soil. Now you just got shit on your plant. That's all that is. And That's that's basically what Chicago has been. It's just such a barren wasteland of field, and they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna grow the tomato. I'm gonna put it." They put it in the ground. Oh my gosh, it's not good soil. Quick, fertilize it. Shit, go! And they just start whipping it, and it's just like, oh my gosh. Now you have nothing but a tomato plant just covered in feces, Kyle.
You seem intimately familiar with this analogy you've tried to make.
I know farmers. Bum ba dum bum bum.
Um, so you feel like, just for clarification purposes, right? Like Chicago's the whole point of this whole discussion is not to necessarily trash Caleb Williams or like say like put into question is Jordan Love the guy in Green Bay, but you feel like 100% Jordan Love is that guy.
Yeah, 100%. Jordan Love is that guy. He has been given every chance. He's playing very, very well. I think that he's only going to continue to get better. I think that he is who you will start as your quarterback for the Green Bay Packers at least for the next 10 years. I would be utterly shocked if Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur come, what is it right now? 20 about to be 2025. Say by 2035, if you don't have Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love still as a team and a tandem, I would be 100% shocked. I think
It's
this
just
is your
crazy because
duo.
I think back to like the first game that he started last year, and I think to myself like all the comparisons, everything that came before him, all the pressure, right? Like of the like oh like well he's had Aaron, and before Aaron was Brett, like the legacy, and will he be that guy? And like like I think there was a couple points that were really key on that whole topic, which is like number one, it was way too early to determine if he was that guy, and putting that pressure on his shoulders, like it's just a media thing to do, is like interview the kid and be like can you live up to that? And like like how are you supposed to answer that? Like,
Yeah, if
am
you
I
say
gonna be in the
sports,
league
then you're
10,
cocky,
15
and then
years and be a Hall of Famer? Like I don't know, man. Like we'll see what happens, right? Like I
yeah,
could step onto the field in the first drive. I could carry an American flag out and tear my ACL. Like that might be what happens. Not that that's happened to anybody specific, but that could be what
no,
happens to me, right? Like, and I could be under reconstruction for a while. There's so many variables to the NFL and playing in the NFL that could change, right? Like head coaching changes. There could be players in and out that impact like how well I'm able to throw the ball and who I can throw the ball to. Our defense, our offensive line, like I mean, we've been through it all in Green Bay, right? Like, and every organization has to some extent, but like putting that pressure on him immediately was pretty unfair. And I think he's done a good job of like shouldering that pressure, getting past that hump of like, hey, guess what? I'm not Aaron, I'm not Brett, but like I am good enough to play in this league. I am good enough to start for this organization, and just trusting himself. Like the coolest thing about Jordan Love to me is just like that he is calm and collected all the time. He seems to like shake things off pretty easily. I never really worry about him throwing an interception when he has this season when it's been kind of reckless. I never really worry about him coming back on the field and being just as reckless. Like he has played hero ball plenty of times this season, but I've never thought to myself like, "Oh God!" Like every throw that he makes, I'm cringing. Like that's just not what I think, and I really have begun to trust him as the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Whereas I think, and again, going back to the initial comparison, is like I don't know if they know what they have in Chicago right now because it's just such a mess. And it's a shame because I want this division to be competitive. I would love to see all four teams from the NFC North somehow make it into the playoffs. It would be a crazy, crazy scenario
yeah, that'd be wild.
for all of us to be in the playoffs. But it was definitely possible this year. Like the Bears are not that far off from being a winning team this season. They just have not put it together when they've needed to, and they got cocky, I think, and their heads got way bigger than what they were able to really do, and they played some quality opponents. Unfortunately for them, that were going to fight them tooth and nail to the very last second of the game. So
Yeah,
um, there should be some improvements, and I still stick with what I said a week ago about the Chicago Bears. I think like in terms of the greatest rivalry in the NFC North, I think that you're still going to see this Bears rivalry come to a head. Caleb Williams is going to be around. The Chicago Bears organization will try to make moves to make him and cement him into being, one of the best quarterbacks in the league come next year. And they should. They have the talent there. Like I wholeheartedly believe. Like I don't know where Keenan Allen's at in his career right now, and I still don't believe that the Chicago Bears are the best receiving corps. But they probably have a better receiving corps than the Green Bay Packers. DJ Moore is a problem, to be honest. Like the fact that he's not targeted 10 times a game is a disgrace. They have a Dunze who is another really good option and will grow. Like they can also add pieces to that if they choose to. What they really need to add is an offensive line, and maybe some tight ends that are actual threats. Like Komet's not bad, but I just don't think that he's utilized how a Tucker Kraft is utilized, or like a Luke Musgrave would be utilized, and
Yeah.
so like they could use some threats there. But at the end of the day, man, like the Chicago Bears are going to be a good football team. Like it just is going to take time. But I just think that like there's this big question in their fan base right now. Like, is he the guy? And it's like he's definitely the guy. You just have the wrong system, and you need to like reform. What your offensive system is able to do to be successful. And to do that, you need a good offensive mind in there that's going to guide these guys in the offseason and like kind of hit the reset button and say, hey, listen, you've learned a lot. Take what you've learned. You're a talented individual, and then we're going to apply it to this, and this is how we're going to be successful. And so, like, I'm not. I'd love to see the Bears fail. Don't get me wrong, the Bears fail, right?
Yeah.
I do. I love to see it crumble to pieces, especially when they were so high and mighty at the beginning of the season. But I live for the competition in the NFC North, and I love everybody saying that the NFC North is the toughest division in football right now. Like it's just fun to hear people talk about that. Um, and Lions players still talking about like Jameer Gibbs was on a podcast recently, and he was talking about, hey, which of the NFC North teams are you most worried about come playoff time between the Vikings and Packers? And he was like, the Packers for sure. So, like that's a good thing. That's a good sign. And you mentioned it earlier. All the Packers' losses this year are very close. In 4 games that the Packers have lost this year, combined total points that we've lost by is only 20. Like that is not a large margin to lose games by. We lost to the Eagles by 5. We lost to the Vikings the first time by 2, and then the Lions by 10, and then 3. So like
Yeah.
it is not a crazy margin of victory that these teams have had over the Green Bay Packers. So anything can happen on any given week is my point here. Jordan Love does to me, if I can weigh in very briefly, he does to me fit the mold of this quarterback in Green Bay. I think that he is somewhat of a system quarterback, but he's also very talented. And I think that you're going to continue to see that over the next few years as him and Matt LaFleur continue to build their relationship offensively, as Josh Jacobs continues to fulfill his role, as, again, like pieces come in and out of the offense. The offensive line has really stepped it up this year. They have really been impressive to me. I would vote them all into the Pro Bowl if it was me, to be honest with you. I think they're all spectacular. And I think that the receiving core is my biggest concern, but I think that is something that, it just takes time. And it's going to take some trust between Jordan and his guys to figure out who his go-tos are. And I love that he is not just zoned in on one person as the go-to guy. He's willing to distribute the ball. Rodgers got in this like loop where it was like, second down and long, third down and long, it always had to be Devontae. It was always him every single time. And it just was so predictable and cringy to watch after a while because I knew sitting on my couch where he was going with the football. And if I know that, then obviously the defense knows that. And Devontae's so good that maybe you could stop him, maybe you couldn't. But that's not going to ultimately win football games. It's not a recipe for success. And I love that Jordan is able to still distribute the ball around and give his guys a shot. So we'll see where it continues to develop. I think that Jordan is the guy. I wouldn't have said that a year ago. I think that I was not wholeheartedly convinced that he was going to be the guy.
You were very convinced that Sean Clifford was the guy, though, if I do remember correctly.
I like Cliff. He's a gamer. Don't hate on Clifford. But it is what it is, man. Like I love that they've continued to build, that they've continued to trust in him, and that the Packers have been as successful as they have. It's surprising. I didn't think that we would be this successful this season. I figured there'd be some more ups and downs for us. But I would have never predicted that the NFC North would have been the biggest obstacle for the Packers to overcome this year. That like the Lions for sure, but
Oh, no. But the
definitely
Vikings, they
definitely
were
not
out.
the.
Honestly,
So
for one, I'll to rebut what you just said there. I just want to give you a round of applause for doing math. That was some good math
what
and
the
adding up those scores, Kyle. I didn't even see any
well,
smoke coming out of your ear. You did well. You did well, bud.
it's written down. It's pretty easy when it's written down, Dave. I'm not gonna lie to you. You know,
Hey, I'm just saying, even the fact that you read that well out loud, you're doing good, Kyle. I really appreciate what you do for this podcast. Uh,
take some research.
and yeah, and I mean, even just you know me, I've always been an optimist when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, and seeing this team develop and turn into what they're turning into, it's really special. I'm pretty happy about everything that's happening right now. Seeing Jordan Love being unquestionably the guy is really it's a special thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their guy for right now in the NFC, and that's where a lot of other organizations are struggling. Regardless of the Bears' struggles down at the bottom of the division, right? Like they have their guy, like they have their guy at the quarterback position. Packers have Jordan Love, the Vikings have Sam Darnold, and the Lions, foreseeably for a few more years at least, have Jared Goff. So like all quarterbacks who are doing fairly well in the system, minus Caleb Williams, and that'll get adjusted. You know, but like other organizations have to worry about like, hey, who's the guy come next year? Are we drafting? Are we rebuilding? Like, what are we doing with this? None of the teams in the NFC North have to worry about that. That's a interesting place for the division to be, but it is fun to watch the division develop and these young QBs develop. I love like even though it's the Chicago Bears, I still love watching the games just to see a young quarterback play in the league. Like I still appreciate the quarterback play,
Yeah, it's
and the
loving
more,
football.
yeah, I mean, the more and more I watch Caleb Williams, the more and more I think that like he's going to be a problem. It's just like can they can they actually support him on the offensive side of the ball or can they not? Like that'll be his level of success in the NFL. Is just like how well is he going to be supported?
Well,
So
sell the team, Kyle. Sell the team.
yeah, they
What
got
is
some.
selling the team going to do? You don't like their hires, but yet every time that a new coach gets hired, you talk about, oh, Matt Nagy came from the Chiefs. He's done amazing things. Eberflus, he's come from what was it, Indianapolis? Weird move, but I mean, he's done some good developing. It's like
Well, it's like
you've always been happy at the new hires. You're happy to see somebody get fired. You're happy to see the new person come in, and then as soon as they fail, you're just happy to see them get fired again. Like just the negative fan base at the Chicago Bears. That's why I'm so happy that they aren't achieving the results that they want because I want to see them suffer because they're such negative people, such negative human beings. What is the team going to do? Get them. Kyle. I hope that they sell this team, and then on top of them, I hope the new buyer moves the team to Arlington Heights. I hope that's their first thing that they do. They're like, I don't. Okay, Chicago, Soldier Field sucks. The city of Chicago is charging us too much to maintain it, and they do a terrible job at maintaining the field. We're going to Arlington Heights, baby. And for
yeah,
me, a Kenosha boy, then it's only an hour drive to get down to Arlington Heights. I'm going to Bears games then, Kyle. At least every year when the Packers are going down there, it's closer for me to go to Arlington Heights than it is to go to Lambeau. That'd be perfect. Please sell the team. Let that be your first decree. They can be the Arlington Heights Bears.
yeah, I don't know that has a good ring to it. The murder city capital of the world Bears sounds better to me, but that is what it is. Also, for just to wrap up on the Jordan Love topic, his stats though thus far this season. This isn't more math, Dave. This is just things I've written down. It's just so you're
Yeah,
just so okay.
I'm
Jordan
still
Love
impressed.
24 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions, over 3,000 yards passing. He's completed 63% of his passes, which is a little bit on the low side, but he does have a 97.8 passer rating thus far in the year. So that's a very good year. It looks like through two more games, he could get very close to that 4,000 yard mark, which is a pretty big milestone season for any quarterback. Um, a little low on the touchdown passes, but like again, like I think 40 is kind of the cap for most quarterbacks where you've had a really really good like MVP candidate type season. And the interceptions, he's limited them the last couple of weeks. He's been smarter about how he's throwing the football, and I even saw in the Saints game. him check down a ball where he had Christian Watson over the top. But what he elected to do is just take the check down, and he was a little bit smarter, and he didn't want to risk it. And like I'm okay with that. Like that, it kills you to see what could have been a touchdown, but it also helps me as a fan understand like, hey, like this has been a focus, and that he's just going to check the ball down and he's going to make better decisions. So like I love the stats this far in the season. I'm not disappointed by that at all. I think that like we really need to change the culture as far as like what we do to prepare to get ready for the season, because it seems like we start very slow and then we pick up in the middle and then have to end really fast. So hopefully, in the off season we're a little bit more active, and it's hard in the NFL to change what's already there, what's already being done. But hopefully it's a little bit more competitive. There's a lot more live reps, and we can get some good looks
Well, you got
rather
to
than
remember
just
too, though, with those stats, you had Jordan missed 2 games this year. And I think in that
sure.
span, you probably have Malik Willis. I think he got, 5 touchdowns? You could easily add that to Jordan's total. Say he played similar net those games, he'd be at 29 touchdowns. Granted, yeah, you don't know. You don't know if he doesn't make those same passes. He doesn't do the same things. And you have Josh Jacobs, who has a career high 13 rushing touchdowns, and then his 1 receiving. So it's like he's got 14 touchdowns there. Where in goal line situations, we're not having Jordan throw the ball just because we have Josh Jacobs running it in. So there's reasons why his touchdowns are smaller, less than what they could be, but that also applies in your system. You have a running back that's doing that. I mean, granted, you don't let me get it confused. You still can throw a lot because Lamar Jackson has Derrick Henry, and he's got like 39 touchdowns already. But Lamar Jackson is also 7 years into the system as a quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens starting. So let's see where Jordan Love is at his 7th year of starting. Not 7th year in the league, 7th year of starting in the league.
Yep. Yeah, I'm 100% right beside you with that. It should be interesting, man. I really do trust it, and it's not something that I would have been able to say last year. So I'm a lot more optimistic with a younger quarterback now than I was a few years ago with a veteran quarterback, just because I felt like we had everything that we needed to win, and we just weren't. When it came down to it, we just weren't. And so that kind of irritates you after a little bit. But I think that the kind of the reset with Jordan Love was kind of a good thing for me as a fan. I feel like it really helped me understand that I have to be a little bit more patient now with the organization, and that watching him develop is just kind of a privilege. And if it works out really well, then great. And if it doesn't, then okay. Like he's just a young kid, and um, in the system, and we might have to endure some struggles for a while, and that's okay. Like that's the game
So
of
what you're
football,
saying
right?
is you had to let a little love in your heart,
Something like that, Dave. Yes,
and now all you need is love.
sure,
Hmm.
sure. Um, all right. So moving past our Jordan segment there, Jordan, you're the guy. All right, that's what we're getting at. Recap: Jordan Love is the guy. All right.
That he is.
Uh, so we have a couple of players on the roster right now that are experiencing injuries, Dave. And one of those, probably the biggest one in terms of media attention, Packers fans worrying or speculating, is the injury to the PCL for Jaire Alexander. And it seems like there's a little bit of controversy around this, Dave. I don't know if we should read into it as much as everybody else is, but it seems like to me something else is going on in the situation. I'm not trying to give some weird hot take or create drama where there is none, but it seems like this injury is dragged on a little bit longer. It's turned to Matt LaFleur saying now that probably not, kind of like this we'll see type thing. Matt LaFleur is not a guy that's gonna throw his guys under the bus, even if there is stuff going on there. He didn't really do it with Aaron when he could have. And he's not a guy that's going to come out to the media and create controversy, right? Like even in the Dalb situation, that was something that he also didn't go to the media and air out somebody's business. It's just not what you do when you're a coach in the National Football League, right? So
Yeah.
I understand that there could be stuff. Let the stuff that's behind the scenes go on behind the scenes. Don't air it out to the public, and I'm all for that. Unless it's something that's is done that's illegal or that's something of that nature, I guess. Where it's hey, people have a right to know that like somebody got hurt or something like that. Like that's something that like I would want to know about as a fan. But it's not necessary for me to know anything else, right? Like that's your organization. You're the head coach. You're the face of it. Um, of the organization when it comes to the coaching position and the franchise. So like I'm gonna let that be up to you. However, it does seem to me like this Jaire thing is a little bit dicey at the moment, and I'm not sure if it's just because, hey man, like we need you on the field, and like he's like it's not go time, or if it's like, hey, we're saving him for the playoffs. We're in a position where we've clinched already. We're just going to save him, let him get healthy. He's not 100%. Or is there more to this? And like I'm of the stance that it's probably a little bit of both. I think that they're saving Jaire for the playoffs. If they can, you rest him as long as possible. But I also see it from the perspective is if he's not getting live repetitions, then the longer and like more laggy you're going to be come game time when I need you in the playoffs. Is he talented enough to perform at a high level regardless? Yeah, probably. But that solely depends on who we're playing. If it's Justin Jefferson in the playoffs week one, like I don't know, dude. Like you've been missing for a while. Like I don't know if I like the matchup between you and Justin Jefferson. Like coming off of an injury, just because you haven't had the reps in competition that you would usually get. And practice is one thing, but like these guys aren't going to go balls to the wall in practicing for the playoffs because there's a risk of injury there too, right? They want to kind of do these walkthroughs and some of these lighter practices before they go out and get ready to play really hard against an opponent where it's win or go home. So, what do you think, Dave? You think there's more to this story? Do you think there's some controversy going on? Do you think it's like, hey, the guy's kind of dragging out this injury, and there's some speculation on if he wants to still be with the team? Is there some chemistry stuff there, or is it just simply like, we're way overthinking it?
I think that what it is Matt LaFleur goes to him and says, Jaire, I miss you. And I'm so sorry. Jaire's like, nah, you can miss me with that. I got your picture. I'm not coming with you. Matt LaFleur, don't count me in. But all emo music that
Aside
Jaire
from
is
all your
thinking
aside
of.
from all your pop, aside from all your punk rock references, how do you actually feel?
Uh, I mean, it's we already clinched playoffs. It would have been nice to have them against, like, say, the Seahawks, but obviously we didn't need them. It would have been nice to have them against the Saints. Obviously, we didn't need them. Probably could have used them against Lions, but at the end of the day, that loss didn't really affect us. That now we're not going to make the playoffs. We made the playoffs. I think that ultimately, if you were to give me the option of say week one in the playoffs, if you give me Jaire Alexander, who hasn't started in probably 10 weeks, or you give me Eric Stokes holding a gun and he's physically allowed to shoot the wide receivers while he's actively guarding them, I would still choose Jaire Alexander sitting all those weeks. Like you could give me Carrington Valentine with a police baton versus Jaire just playing out there after sitting all those weeks. You could give me Eric Stokes with a pair of brass knuckles and he's allowed to hit them as well as the referee. You could give me Jaire versus the field for what we have in the secondary for the Green Bay Packers. I hope that he's 100% when he comes back. Uh, they just don't need him at this point. There's no point in forcing him out there because say he aggravates an injury. I don't know if there's even been a stretch this year. I'd have to look back and see, but I don't think he's played 4 consecutive games in a row this year. Because I remember our game week 3 versus Minnesota, he was injured for that game too. So and then he came back for a stretch. Like I just don't think that Jaire physically is at the point where he can play to that high level consistently anymore. When he's out there, he's good. He's just getting hurt and he can't stay on the field. And this has been a problem for the last few years at this point. So I think that you look and you see, you got to get through the wild card, you got to get through divisional, you got to get through a championship, you got to get through a Super Bowl. That's 4 games there. Your best chance of having Jaire, if you want him out for 4 games, is during a playoff run. And yeah, you'd want him in a perfect world. You want to get him as many snaps as possible. You want him to be ready. But at the end of the day, I would take Jaire versus anybody we have in the field, and I'd be comfortable with that. And yeah, Justin Jefferson, is that a good matchup? No, but give me one cornerback that's taken on Justin Jefferson that you're like, oh yeah, it's a good matchup. maybe Patrick Surtain, maybe he's going to limit him. But even then, like Justin Jefferson's going to get his. Jordan Addison is going to get his. Like, there's just teams that you can throw anybody up against them, minus them having a gun. They're going to get theirs.
Yeah, I think Jaire's just in recent times, right? He's one of the corners that's been able to either get in his head or outperform him a little bit when it came to defending him. And obviously, he's just a guy. Like, I don't think that fans are upset because he's missing time for an injury. I think fans are upset because they see this matchup as a pretty competitive thing, and it's just not having him that's upsetting, right? And so. Especially with a PCL injury, it's like, like I don't know. I'm not a doctor, right? So I don't make decisions as to timeout or what guys are looking at for a timeline before coming back. I think that if he's hurt, then he's hurt, and there's nothing that we can do about it. As much as we want him to play, like there's nothing that we can do to compel him to play. I can give him mine, I guess.
Yeah. It doesn't help either when you know that he's one of the top paid NFL quarterbacks in the league. Like, he's making more than most cornerbacks that are playing more
Maybe
and
there's just
better.
speculation that he's milking it a little bit or something like that. I don't know, man. Like I really don't know. I'm not on the team. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not a doctor, so I can't make those decisions. But I would say, like, and maybe you'll agree with me on this, is that should it come to week 2 of the playoffs and we still haven't seen Jaire Alexander, like something's probably going on there.
Yeah, we can talk about that more then and elaborate. But for right now, would I rather see him in week 18 of the NFL season playing against Justin Jefferson, or would I rather see him playing in the NFC Championship game? I want him in the NFC Championship game. Take all the time that you need. Once the playoffs come, be ready.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully we see him come playoff time. I know people are trying to always create things out of things that aren't there. I don't know if he's done any media time or anything like that about his injury. That would seem something that like is pretty common. Matt LaFleur just seems like he's fielding all the questions, which also seems weird to me because they should be able to just ask Jaire what his timeline is if he's traveling with the team or like whatever he's doing. But that's just not the case. Matt's fielding the questions, and right now it looks like he's just injured until he comes back. So then that's all we're getting. So to expect more than that is just kind of asinine at this point. I think that's all they're going to give us is just like, hey, like he's out until he's out, and when he's healthy, we'll let you know.
Still
Um,
practicing, still getting out there, still being with the team. I'd be more concerned if, say, he wasn't practicing at all, or he wasn't doing any team activities. But I mean, clearly he's still staying fresh. He's still doing what he needs to with the team. So it's not some controversy. It's not like he's out here just like, no, I don't want to be a Packer anymore. No, I'm boycotting the Green Bay Packers. No, he's doing his thing. It's just taking time.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, man. Like you want to see your one of your top 8 corners in the league, come out and play games of football. So
Yeah, you know
uh,
what they probably needed him to do though, Kyle? Honestly, and I just thought of this. What if they took Jaire and they put him in a freezer?
that's true. That could accelerate his healing process. You should probably get in contact with somebody from the Packers organization. Actually, maybe from the Saints organization, who then can suggest it to the Packers organization.
What if we threw little chunks of ice in cube form? Some would say ice cubes, and we throw those at his PCL.
Maybe we throw Ice Cube himself at
We could throw
Jaire.
ice cube. We could throw iced tea. We could throw anybody. What was
Maybe we just take all of NWA and we throw it at Jaire.
we could throw the guy who sings Ice Ice Baby, like
But, yeah, Vanilla Ice himself.
Vanilla Ice. Yeah, we could throw the Queen from Narnia because she made plenty of ice. We could throw her in there. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just
Uh, actually, I
get
think
cold on this
Game
man's
of
stat.
Game of Thrones is Night King. I think. I don't think that there's any ice there, but we everybody understands the point.
Sir, I was going the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
No. I was trying to access the Game of Thrones king because he's like made of ice, but it's all it's all good. It's all good.
I've never seen one episode of Game of Thrones. You need to bump up my knowledge. Although I am watching Squid Game season 2. This
I've not
isn't a
seen any
Squid
of
Games
this.
podcast, but decent.
Um, So, a couple of quick topics here. Uh, the just it's more of informative actually. This next point is just the playoff picture as it stands is this. Okay, so we're looking at 7 seeds total in the NFC right now. As it stands, right, this is subject to change depending on divisional stuff, but right now we have the Lions obviously are taking the first seed in the NFC North, or as the NFC as a whole. Then we have the Eagles right below them, who, by the way, this week are down Jalen Hurts, which is a huge loss for them. And I don't know if Kenny Pickett's actually going to start or not, or get the nod, but we'll see how that works out. That should be an interesting matchup. I don't know who they play this week, but that should be an interesting matchup.
I think it's the Cowboys this week. It's either Cowboys or Giants.
Yeah, it's Cowboys week for them, so that could be a very interesting game. I don't know how much that'll swing anything necessarily, but the
Hmm.
Eagles they're looking good still as a 2 seed. Just taking their time getting Jalen healthy and making sure that he's good to go, so they don't just re-injure him this week and then they end up losing him long term for some concussion protocol stuff. So take their time, get him back. He's been having a good season. So Rams as a 3 seed, Falcons, Vikings, and then Packers. And then we have Commanders coming in at 7 right now. Dude, I think the Commanders are scary, man. I don't know. I don't know if everybody feels the same way I do about the Commanders, but they're a scary football team, man. Jaden Daniels is the guy, man. Like he is the truth. His arm is absolutely crazy. I think they need a couple pieces here and there on that Washington team too. But they could be a really scary team here in the next couple of years if they continue to develop him like they are right now. So I'm scared of
Yeah,
the Commanders. I do not love them in the playoffs. I think that we do not match up well against them either. But um, that's just kind of the playoff picture as it stands right now. So I don't know if there's I'm not intimidated by that a whole lot, to be honest with you. Like the Lions are going to Lion, and the Vikings will also Viking. I don't think that there's like I'm not concerned about the Vikings. I think they could easily get knocked off first round in the playoffs. I think that the Packers and Eagles matchup, or like potentially Packers Rams matchup, is actually a pretty decent matchup. I don't mind that at all. Saquon's a problem, so hopefully it's not the Eagles, but we'll see. But everybody else is kind of like meh. Like I'm more scared of the Commanders than I am the Lions, and I know that seems kind of crazy, but I really am. I'm more concerned with some other like onesie and twosie teams in this playoff bracket in the NFC than I am the Detroit Lions. So
I mean
there'll be a problem.
the Commanders have a pretty weak run defense, though, Kyle. And that's the thing is like you get Josh Jacobs on there, he'd be able to get his against that Commanders defense.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be a game eventually that could be at home. So it's all just how the cards fall. It was important this week for me to remind myself that the last time the Packers won a Super Bowl was as a wild card team. So it's not absurd to think that they can make a run. It's just what teams are hot, at what time of the year, and who can beat who on when we come into the stadium, right? Who comes to play? Who's willing to control time of possession? Who's willing to control the line of scrimmage and things of that nature. So, it's just who's hot and when, man. And unfortunately for a lot of these a lot of the teams that have been great this year in the NFC, i.e., like the Lions, Vikings, and Packers, like we're not all making it to the Super Bowl, right? Uh, we're all we're all destined to for one of us to make it or none of us to make it. So that's
Green Bay's playing well enough, though. Green Bay's a team that if they won the Super Bowl, nobody would be shocked. If they didn't win the Super Bowl and they got knocked out and say the divisional, I don't think anybody'd be shocked about that either. It's a really tough NFC.
so
There's a lot of good teams.
out of out of all those teams, Dave, and we can make kind of a quick one without elaborating here, but as it stands, out of those teams, so we have the Lions, Eagles, Rams, Falcons, Vikings, obviously the Packers, and then the Commanders. So out of those 6 teams, really, who scares you the most out of those 6? Is it still the Detroit
E-
Lions?
Easily Philadelphia. Philadelphia, they control the line of scrimmage on offense and defense. They have really, really good lines. They have a white cornerback, so that's pretty scary all in its own right. Uh,
Cooper DeJean,
Cooper DeJean.
he by the way, who
DeJean.
laid out Derek who laid out Derrick Henry a couple weeks ago, which is wild.
Get Derrick Henry a little bit of momentum. He caught the ball and he turned around. I'm not that impressed by that, but yeah, just even that alone, it's kind of like the golden spatula and SpongeBob. They're like, we have a secret weapon. Ooh, a white cornerback. So like, I haven't seen one of these ever.
I mean, he's good.
The legend had, the legend had foretold of the white cornerback.
Is he from Iowa?
Hey, he's from Iowa. Brian
Yeah,
Balaga, Iowa.
I'm getting, I'm getting, I'm getting better at some of these draft picks, man, around the league. Thanks to you. Yeah,
It's
I guess I'm welcome. Anyways, all right. So you're saying the Eagles scare you. I think that's a good decision. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'd say the Eagles and the Commanders are really a problem to me. It's just the unpredictability. Jaden Daniels is so mobile that the Packers and mobile quarterbacks scare me. They have a lot of talent on that Washington team and guys that have just been sitting around in that organization that have been waiting to win. So that's just a scary thing. And like when the odds are there and the chips are down, I think that you'll find that the Commanders have a lot of fight in them, and they've shown that, dude. They've shown that so many times this season is like they are willing and able to come and win games last second. Like they beat the Bears on a Hail Mary. They beat the Eagles last week without Jalen Hurts, but still on a game-winning touchdown. Like they don't give up. They fight till the end, and like that could be a very dangerous thing come playoff time. So we'll see. And like I said, that's all subjective. It's just all where the cards fall at the end of the day, and some of the matchups may benefit the Green Bay Packers, and some of them might not. And we'll just see where it all lands.
Yep.
Last thing, Packers Vikings, man. So we lost the first game to the Vikings by 2. We got kind of smacked in the first half, came back, made a good second half run. Jordan Love, not his best performance in the first game. We're still 11-4, and the Vikings are still a 2-loss team at this point.
Hmm.
So obviously have the advantage in record. That doesn't mean everything. They've been playing very, very strong football lately. So the Packers, this is going to be a clash of the Titans type matchup. And the Packers would love to, at least even the series for this year, considering we already lost at home. This is tough, man. It's in Minnesota. Let's hear your score prediction, Dave.
I think that Minnesota has a lot more to play for than Green Bay at this point. Green Bay's basically we're either trying to get the 5th seed or maintain the 6th seed at this point. But Minnesota's still playing for that number 1 seed. If they lose and the Lions win this week, I believe statistically they can't win the number 1 seed anymore. Even though I saw a thing that said that. It doesn't make sense to me because you'd think that if they still played the Lions with only 1 game behind, that game would be for the title, but or for the number 1 seed. But maybe it's just a divisional record thing. I'd have to look it up. But or it's a conference thing, not divisional. But no, I think that the Vikings are going to play hard. I think they have a lot to play for. They're going to try to beat the Packers. The Packers they're balling. They're going out there. They're doing what they need to do to win games. I see them continuing what they've been doing. I don't think that they blow them out by any means, but I do think that they do win. And it's a game that it's not a blowout, but it's a game that they win. Say wouldn't be surprised if it was like 31-14 in the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden you get some garbage time touchdowns from Minnesota that brings it a little bit closer. So give me 31-28. Or yeah, 31-28. I'm happy with that. 31-28 Green Bay.
So you think that the Vikings have more to play for in this scenario?
I would, well, not for this year, but for this game, I would say that they're going to go out there and they're going to try their best. I just think the Green Bay's they're continuing clicking together. I think this momentum is going to keep on carrying, and I don't see Minnesota even that game versus Seattle. They weren't destroying them or beating them like we were beating Seattle. Like I just don't see Minnesota being that team. Like at some point, Sam Darnold levy is going to blow, and you're just going to have what you're going to have. I don't see this team being that consistent Super Bowl, bound. I think that they're a very good team, but I would be very, very surprised if the Vikings really make a big splash. At some point they're going to crack, and why not against us?
Yeah, I mean that's a great theory. I don't mean it's a very hard one. Both teams have been on a roll. I think this is going to be a great game regardless. I think both teams are high powered. I think that this, Minnesota team being at home is obviously a big advantage, like it would for us being at Lambeau right now. Just the crowd energy and the stakes. Uh, it's just a tough place to be for the Packers coming into this game with so much momentum and such good play on the field lately. But man, oh man, I think we that's our consultant to the podcast in the background there, Parker.
Oh yeah, Parker, big Packer fan.
But I don't know, man. I think it could go either way. To be honest with you, I think this is a game where it probably down to a last second goal. I am 100% supportive of the Packers winning the game. Do I think that it's going to happen? No, I don't. And this is not going to be one of those times where just because we do a Packers podcast that I'm going to support the narrative that we will automatically win the game. I think that's unrealistic. I'm not saying that's what you did. But I think this is a very close game. I think, unfortunately, this is going to be a heartbreaker. I think that we lose this one 27-24. I think this is going to be a tough one. But
fair weather fan.
I mean, all of our losses are 10 points or less. I think that this game fits that narrative 110%. I think that we battle. I think that we fight. I think that the Vikings just have a little bit more still riding on this, and they're trying to finish out strong at home. And, we're a hated division rival,
Yep.
So.
Hey, we're going to have to wait and see. That's why the game's got to get played,
So hopefully you're on a roll with your score predictions lately. Hopefully you're right on the money with this one, and I don't have to worry. Obviously, I hope the Packers pull it out, and I'm wrong. But that's where
I would also like to throw this out there that the Denny family Christmas got pushed back due to me working on Christmas itself. So we're getting together on the 29th for our little gathering and such, and it just so happens this game is falling on the 29th. And it was funny because my mom hates when we all watch Packer games during like holidays and such, Thanksgiving or anything like that, because we all just watch the game and we cheer and we don't do the family time stuff and we don't sit down and want to talk and eat and everything. We want to cheer as a family for the Green Bay Packers. So this year she said, okay, game is at noon. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this family get together at 3. Game should already be done. And then the NFL came down and laid it all on the table. Went boom. We're flexing it. We're going to 3:25 kickoff. And my mom doesn't know yet. She's gonna think the game will already be done yet, Kyle. And that's my Christmas present this year that I have given to myself. Is getting to see the look on her face when she's just like, I thought the game was done. No, mother, the Packers play at 3.
You should show up with your notebook, take some notes for the podcast while you're there. I'm sure she'll love that.
Sorry, Mom, I have a very popular podcast I have to worry about. Can't. Families in the background right now. Priorities.
Yeah, man. All right. We'll wrap up there. Like I said, this is going to be a very tightly contested game here. Hopefully the Packers pull it out, and you're right about your score prediction. But I'm looking forward to it, man. It's fun to watch watch football this time. So enjoy your family gathering. Hopefully you annoy all your family members, and of course, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you. And hey, if anybody's still watching this or listening to the podcast, where can you all find us?
Oh, you can find us on YouTube, which is where this will be posted. But you can also find us on Spotify and Instagram at Lambeau Lounge.
And can you also like and subscribe? Helps us get with the algorithm, especially with me doing shorts yelling at people.
Yeah, for sure. All right, dude. I appreciate you as always, and till next week, my friend.
Peace out, brother.